And we're live. Working. I see we've already got one person tuning in. That's good. I'm sorry that today has been such a process to get through. It's late, but at least things are now working. Can you give me some sort of acknowledgement if the sound is working, because I'm trying a new microphone on this laptop and I have no idea. Excellent, that's good, because the built-in microphone on this particular laptop is just abysmal. However, it does look like the camera is a bit better. So the camera seems to be looking good on my end, at least. I don't know about your end. Anyway, we are now behind. So a quick reminder to all of you that have tuned in, can we please refrain from using the chat as purely a social thing? If you have questions about your learning, that's great. That's the place to ask it. But we shouldn't be insulting people. We shouldn't be posting about memes and that sort of thing. Let's just keep it fairly sensible, please. Thank you. Right, anyway, since we're so behind, let's get started. So, couple of things. Our word of the week this week. We're starting on a Monday, therefore we need a word of the week. Our word of the week this week is tenacious. So Tenacious, tenacious. Now the word tenacious, it's a word that I first came across when I was probably just a little bit younger than you guys, and it was describing the behavior of a particular shark. So I was watching this shark documentary. I was really into sharks as a kid, still am, and they were describing a particular species of shark called a nurse shark, which is normally a very peaceful shark, but when it bites onto you, it's almost incapable of letting go. And the documentary narrator, he said that when a nurse shark bites on, it bites on with the tenacity of a bulldog. In other words, it's very tenacious. So there's your context there. Tenacity, tenacious. It's biting on with the tenacity of a bulldog. You might be able to figure out, is it a bit pixely, guys? Sorry, guys. Again, we're working with a fairly rubbish Wi-Fi here, but hopefully hopefully it'll work. Anyway, the word tenacious here, it basically means not giving up. It's really, yeah, guys, I get that it's blurry. Calm it down now, please. If something is tenacious, it's really fixated on the thing that it's doing. It doesn't give up. It pursues it. It'll chase it down, and it just keeps trying and keeps going. So that's what tenacious means. So that is our word of the week. I'll type it in the chat. I know one person already did, but just the fact that people are saying that it's blurry, the camera, I apologize about that. But that is the word tenacious there. Kind of like determined, yeah, determined, but in kind of almost a bit of a bloody-minded sort of way, a real, almost an angry sort of determined, I would say. But yeah, very much like determined, Cami, yeah. Okay, that's our word of the week. A couple of other things quickly. So Miss Lindsay has now volunteered her services at the the hub school. That's it. The name escaped me there. So she's volunteering there, which means that at times she might be slightly less available to P6A. Only at times though. So I'll be trying to sort of fill in some of the gaps there. I think it's fantastic that she's doing it, because she's really taken on the roles of one of the heroes of our time. She's doing a wonderful job volunteering so that key workers can carry on doing the important work that they're doing. So I'm really glad that she's done that. So please show her a lot of respect and support for the fact that she's doing that, because it's really a fantastic thing to be doing. What else are the things that I have to talk about? Literacy. Literacy is the first thing we're going to about today. So your literacy task for today is you're working on different interview questions. And what I want you to do is kind of pretend that you're a news report writer. You're charged with writing a news report, although you're not writing the news report yet. Just now, what you're doing is you are coming up with interview questions to ask someone during this time of crisis. Okay, so You're an interviewer. Your job before writing your news report, you have to go out and you have to interview someone about their experience during this whole lockdown period. Now, to be a good interviewer, you need to very carefully plan your interview questions. So, interviewing is all about the nature of the questions themselves. Okay, so your job is basically to conduct effective research. Now, in the document that you've been provided about that, um, you've been given a question matrix, so it has green at one side, then sort of yellowy amber color, and then red color, and that's a way of kind of getting your questions to get slightly deeper, as it were. So you're trying to go for the deepest questions that you possibly can. Not helpful having all the emojis in the comments, please, Alyssa. Thank you. So what I want you to think about is what makes an effective question. Okay, what makes an effective question? You might be thinking about things like, sorry, I'm getting distracted by things going on at the side there. One thing I can say is that one thing that makes something less effective as a question is if it's just a yes/no question. So one of the things that you want to be avoiding is yes/no questions as much as possible. Okay, so if you're asking things like, "Are you enjoying yourself during this lockdown period?" That would not be a very effective question. "Did you go for a walk yesterday?" That would not be a very effective question. So what makes a more effective interview question? Have we think about it. See if you can type a response in the comments. So what is a more effective question? Certainly more effective questions are going to be things that probe a little bit deeper about what we're wanting to find out about, and where the interviewee, the person being interviewed, can kind of expand on their own answer. So if they're being asked something where the answer is just yes or no, then it's less effective. So we've got who, what, when, why, and how. Okay, that's a good basis for many of our questions there. So if we look at our matrix, and I know you probably don't have it up in front of you, but the green sections, we've got what and where, and is and did. So what is, where is, what did, where did, these sorts of things. Those are all sort of the fairly simple questions. So things like, what is it like working from home? That's a what is question. Or what did you do at the weekend? That's a what did question. But they're all quite simple. They are open-ended questions still, but they're still fairly simple in that they don't probe very deep. Some more sort of amber questions here might be things like, what can? So what can people do for enjoyment during this lockdown period? Or when can you see this whole situation improving? I don't want to keep giving you answers or possible questions, because then I'm just doing the work for you. But aim for higher order questions. So if you can ask more things from the red questions, the why might, how will, when will, those sorts of questions tend to be higher order, and that's the sort of thing that you want to aim for. Okay, so once you've written your questions, you plan your questions carefully. What I would do if it was me, I'd leave a bit of a gap underneath each question. You're planning between 5 and 10 questions, I think it is. But leave a bit of a gap underneath your questions, and then that way you have a space to type in the responses, or write in the responses afterwards. So if you've got, you're probably going to be interviewing one of the adults in your household, a parent or something. Once you've written out your questions, go and ask them when they've got a bit of time. Obviously, they might be busy doing their own work, but ask them and then write word for word the response. I've just seen someone asking, what is the matrix? What matrix? So I haven't actually pointed that out. So if you go to the literacy section, you go to literacy, and then there should be a section. Sorry, this is on Teams, obviously. On literacy, there should be a section that says something to the effect of literacy helpers or literacy support material or something like that. And in there, there's a whole load of JPEG files, little picture files, and it's got the question matrix in there. However, it is also included, as Miss Lindsay is quite sensibly pointing out, of course, it's actually on the lesson plan itself. So if you're looking at today's lesson plan, the question matrix is on there. Okay. So hopefully that makes things fairly clear. I hope I haven't actually ended up confusing anything, Miss Lindsay. I know you're having to type responses back, but basically you're just writing interview questions as kind of trying to make them as high order as possible, and you can then interview your parents or someone else in your household later about this whole situation. Okay, right. The final thing that we're going to go over, although this is kind of going to be the main thing, I suppose, is a little bit of maths. So maths this week is all very much just revision. In fact, kind of a lot of the things we're doing this week are based around revision. So what I'm going to say, I think I'll just say a few of the topics, and what I want you guys to say, what I want you guys to type in the comments is, sorry, I keep getting distracted by reading the stream. I'm actually going to turn it off so I'm not looking at it. However, I'm still trusting you guys to be sensible and not type anything daft. Remember, there are teachers and other parents watching. What I want you guys to write is which areas of maths you think you would find particularly tricky, so that I can go over a couple of them on the board. So we've got things like percentages, algebra, area and perimeter, fractions of a number, equivalent fractions, simplifying fractions, multiplying and dividing by 10, angles. There might be other things that we've gone over as well, but in the comments just now, I want you to think which one of those areas is an area that I find most challenging, and which area would you like me to go over for just 2 or 3 minutes just now. So get typed in the comments. I'm coming back to the chat feed. So algebra, that's one thing that's coming up. We've got a few algebra votes there. So we'll probably go over a bit of that. Division, we've got a question about as well. Okay. We've got someone saying percentages. They're struggling with percentages. We've been doing that most of last week, so I'm a bit reluctant to go over too much about percentages. Okay, well, let's start off with algebra then. Let me clear my board. I don't know where I've actually put my stuff. Never mind. I'll just do it on the flip side here. Right. So the key with algebra, and there's a couple of ways of thinking about it. You can think of algebra in one of two ways. You can think about it as a function machine, or you can think about it as a set of scales that need to be balanced. Okay, I always like thinking about it the scales way, but some of you like thinking about it the function machine way. Either way, let's start off fairly easily. So we've got x, and when we add 3, we get 10. Now, this is a really simple question, and I know that you've already worked out the answer, most of you. The answer in this case would just be 7. We know that x equals 7. But here's a couple of ways of thinking about it. So we have our unknown thing, x. This is the function machine way of thinking about it. And what we've done to that x is add 3, and so what we get out the other side is 10. Now, if we want to find what x is, we can just work backwards. So we start at the 10. Well, what did 10 have done to it? It added 3. So we're going to take off 3. So 10 take away 3, what does that get us? Well, it gets us 7. Okay, so that's one way of thinking about it. That's the function machine method of thinking about it. The other way of thinking about it, make sure I'm using the dry end of the sponge. The other way of thinking about it is like a set of scales that need balanced. Okay, so we've got x plus 3 equals 10. So think of this as a set of scales here. We have x plus 3 on this side. So we have a little bag of x. We don't know what's in that bag, but there's a bag of x. But there's also 3 other things that have been added to that side of the scales. And we know that when that extra 3 things is added, it weighs the same as 10. So 10 and x plus 3 weigh the same. Okay, well, what we need to do is we need to find out what x on its own is. So how do we get x on its own? Well, we take out the 3 from this side. Okay, so this side is now going to be lighter. It's going to be just x on its own. But we took out 3, so it's lighter, which means the scale is going to tip because there's 10 on this side and only x on this side now. So now we need to take out 3 on this side here. So we take out 3, the scales balance again. So x equals 10 take away 3. You see what we've hopefully you see what we've done here. We've taken off 3 from this side, and so to balance it, we have to take off 3 from that side as well. So therefore, x equals 7. Okay, we'll do one more example like that, but a little bit of a harder one because that one's fairly easy. I'm starting this off relatively easy there. So let's jump up a little bit. Let's go x plus, we'll go 13 equals 26. Not that hard either, but still something to be a little bit challenging. So you could think about it as a function machine, in which case we have x and we add 13 to it, and that gives us 26. So then we would just take off the 13. We undo what's been done to it. So that's one way of thinking about it. And we've already got the answer from some people here. Hopefully that's making sense. The other way to think about it is like our scales analogy, which I'm going to talk about. So we have x plus 13 and 26. To get x on its own, I have to take away the 13 there. So that gives me x on its own, but that makes the scales unbalanced. So I also have to take away 13 on this side. So x equals 26 take away 13. And that will rebalance the scales. So x must equal 13. Okay? Now, let's do one that involves a little bit of multiplication as well. Okay, because we've got people asking for harder, and I completely get that. I might give one example involving a square number for the people that are really fancying challenging themselves. So those of you who fancy a bit of a challenge, try this one. I'll write it down here. So we'll say x squared plus, let's go 9. It's actually not that hard. Not that hard, but we'll go with it. Equals 90. Nah, that's too easy. X squared plus 9 equals 45. I think that works. So you can try that one if you find that too easy. Squared is when you multiply a number by itself. So 2 squared is 4. 3 squared is 9. So if a number's been squared, you have to unsquare it using the square root. Hopefully you've kind of covered that before. That's your challenge one. So x squared plus 9 equals 45. One that's a little bit less challenging. Let's go 3x plus 6 equals 21. So this time we've got 3x. That means 3 times x. So if I was to write this out as a function machine, I would have x, and I'm timesing it by 3, and then I'm adding 6, and what I get out is 21. Okay, that's the way we would think about it in a function machine. So the multiplication is the first thing that's been done to x. We've times it by 3 first. So x times 3 plus 6 equals 21. In that case, we'd have to work in reverse here. So 21, I'd have to take away 6, then I'd have to divide it by 3. Okay? So that's one way of laying it out. The other way of laying it out is by balancing it. So we've got x plus 3x plus 6 and 21. So I get 3x on its own by taking away 6. So I've taken away 6 here, which makes it unbalanced. That means I'm going to have to take away 6 here. So I get 3x equals 21 take away 6. So 3x is 15. So 3x, 3 bags of x, equals 15. So what does 1 bag of x equal? Well, how do I undo multiplication? I have to divide. So I've got 3 bags of x equaling 15. I want 1 bag of x, so I'm going to do 15 divided by 3. Please stop shouting harder, because you know what, Hamish? You might find this easy, but not everyone does. And so that's why I'm going over it, okay? So x equals 5, okay? So that's how we would solve that one. This one here, this involves a square number. So we're going to get x squared on its own by taking away the 9. So x squared equals 45 take away 9. So x squared equals 36. Now, if you know your square numbers, you know that it's 6 squared that makes... Oh, it's not you, pal. Who is it that's OUSS 76 then? I thought it was Hamish. I'm getting myself confused. So who is that then that's saying harder? Let me know. Anyway, so x equals the square root of 36. So x equals 6. Okay. Oh, is it Zach? Is it right, Zach? Stop shouting harder all the time. Some people find this more than hard enough. I think it's wonderful that you don't, but I'm kind of limited in how much I can challenge people through this medium. Okay? Thank you. Right, guys. Okay, so that's a little bit of algebra there. Let's take one more vote here. So what other skill would you like me to go over? So that's a little bit of algebra. Again, there's videos on this stuff as well. There are maths videos on it, and that'll hopefully help you visualize it a wee bit more. But other things that we've got are things like simplifying fractions or finding fractions of a number. Percentage off, we've got someone asking about division. Okay, so let's very quickly just go over a little bit about division, and then we'll do... I don't really want to do percentages off because that's something that we did last week, but I'll maybe try and touch upon it, and then that'll be that. So, area of a circle is pi r squared. That's all you need to know, Rosalind. If you follow the formula pi r squared, you'll get the area of a circle. So pi is 3.14 roughly, r is the radius, and then you square it. Okay, so division. Let's take a fairly easy number here. Let's go 87 divided by 4. Okay, 87 divided by 4. Now, the thing is, there's different ways that we can show this. Okay, so the first thing we're going to ask is how many 4s are in the first number here? How many 4s are there in 8? So we do our 4 times table until we get as close to 8 as possible. So we go 4, 8. Okay, well, that was 2 stations. So how many 4s are in 8? That's 2 there. Okay. Next, we're going to take the 7, and we're going to say how many 4s are in 7. So we go 4. Okay, no, if we go to the next station, we go too far. So it's actually just 1 with a remainder. How much of a remainder? Well, it's a remainder of 3. So we could say that this is 21 remainder 3. And that would be a perfectly valid answer. Okay? But another way of thinking about it is I could do the same thing. So how many 4s are in 8? 2. How many 4s are in 7? 1 remainder 3. But instead of writing remainder 3, I write the remainder next to a 0.0 here. So I basically add a 0.0 on the end of the 87 and add my remainder next to that. So how many 4s are in 30? Well, let's try it. 4 times table until we get as close to 30 as possible. So we go 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. Well, that is 7. But there's still a remainder, and there's a remainder of 2. So we're going to have to add an extra 0 there. How many 4s are in 20? 5. So we could write this as 21.75. Okay? Couple of different ways of actually showing it there. We would not, however, write 21.03, which I've seen someone write in the comments there, okay? So it is not 0.03. The remainder of 3 goes next to the first 0 there. Okay, that's annoying, you can't see the writing. I'll try and move it a wee bit closer. I don't know if that'll make it any easier. A bit more visible this way. Just hit myself in the head with it. Hopefully that's a bit more visible there, although you can't see the top one anymore. Okay, so we're doing 8 divided by 4 is 2 with no remainders. 7 divided by 4 is 1 with 3 remainders, but the remainder 3 goes beside this 0.0 here. So you see how I've added a 0.0. Okay, that's really important if we're wanting to get our answer as a decimal. So let's try another one similar to that then. And then we're going to move on. So this is just the last division one quickly. Let's do, you know what, we'll divide by 4 again because it's a nice easy one to, no, actually, let's divide by 5. 5, and we'll go 1, 6, 4. 164 divided by 5. Now, my recommendation, if I was doing this and I wanted to get my answer as a decimal, I might add a 0.0 on the end of that, just in anticipation of possibly needing it. So you don't need to add a 0.0 there, but if you're wanting to show your answer as a decimal, it sometimes helps to do not 164, but 164.0, or maybe 0.00, just in case. But in any case, I'll add that on at the end if it turns out that I need it. Okay, so how many 5s are there in 1? There's none of them. 1 remainder. How many 5s are there in 16? Well, let's do our 5 times table. 5, 10, 15. Okay, that got us up to 15 in 3 stations, but with 1 remainder. How many 5s are there in 14? Okay, well, we go 5, 10. Okay, only 2, but with 4 remainders. So 2, and now you see why we need that 0.0. I could just write remainder 4, but if I want my answer as a decimal, I have to do 0.0, and I put my 4 next to that. So that's where the remainder 4 goes. We just basically keep adding zeros on the end of this until we don't need a remainder anymore. So now, how many 5s are in 40? Well, there's 8 of them. So our answer is 32.8. Hopefully that's cleared up division a wee bit for us. If you're still having a bit of trouble with that, again, I've got a video on it. Go and have a look at it there. The last thing then was percentages off a number, as in reducing something by a percentage. Now, we did this last week, but if some people are still finding it tricky, that's fine. I'll go over it just one more time, and then I'm going to sign off. Okay, so percentages off a number. So let's start off with, I want you to reduce 80 by 10%. So reduce 80 by 10%. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to work out 10% of 80. What's 10% of 80? Hopefully it's going to come up in the comments any minute. What is 10% of 80? I'm waiting. I'm getting bored though. 8. There we go. Thank you, Zach. Excellent. So 10% of 80 is 8. Therefore, if we're reducing it by 10%, we're going to take 8 off of 80. So we're going to take our 80 and we're going to take away the 10%, the answer to which is 72. Okay, so 72 will be the answer to reducing 80 by 10%. Okay, let's then reduce 70 by 20%. Okay, so we're reducing 70 by 20%. How do you do that? Well, the first thing we should always work out every single time is, say it with me, 10%, guys. We work out 10% first. If we work out 10%, we can work out all the rest. Now, that's not to say that this is the only way of doing it. There are other ways of doing it, definitely, and I often use other ways of doing it. But the way that I've taught you, the way that's fairly quick and easy, is to work out 10% first. So 10% of 70 is 7. Okay, but I want to know 20% of it. So what's 20%? 20% of 70 is going to be 7 times 2. So 2 lots of 10%. So that's 14. Okay, so 20% of 70. God, I've just looked in the screen and seen how squint my writing is. It's weird writing at this sort of angle. It's kind of hard to keep it straight. So 20% of 70 is 14. Therefore, if I want to reduce 70 by that 20%, I need to go back to that 70 and take off the 20%. So I'm going to do 70, take away. Well, 20% was 14. And that equals 56, which I've already seen coming up in the comments there. Okay, now if you got 64, it sounds to me like you're making a bit of a subtraction error, just a takeaway error. Okay, so if in doubt, do it as a column sum, do it as an actual sum. So you know that you have 70 and you're taking away 14. Okay, 0 take away 4. You can't do it, so you have to exchange. You're going to score out this 7, it becomes a 6, and that becomes a 10. 10 take away 4 is 6. 6 take away 1 is 5. Okay, so that's why we get 56. Hopefully that makes sense, Jess, okay? Right, let's do just one more. In fact, this time let's do a percentage increase rather than percentage decrease. So, a percentage increase. Let's increase, let's make it a wee bit harder. Let's do 65, and we're going to increase by 30%. 30%. Okay? Guys, I can't sort it if it's gone pixely. Okay? Freddie, you're saying that to me as if I can somehow magically make it go better. I can't. It's just the way the internet works, pal. I am, however, paying a lot of money to upgrade my internet, so hopefully we will have fewer of these pixely experiences. Right, so 65, we're going to increase it by 30. So basically, we're going to find 30% of it and then add it back on to the 65 thing. Okay, right. So 65, increase it by 30. Well, what we're going to work out first of all, 10%, right enough. Okay, so 10% of 65 is going to be 6.5. Now we're going to need to work out what 30% is. So 30% of 65 is going to be 6.5 times 3. So 5 times 3 is 15. 6 times 3 is 18, plus the 1, 19. So it's going to be 19.5. So 30%, hopefully you can see how I've done that. I'll try and move it a wee bit closer here. I just did it as a quick chimney sum here. So 30% of 65 is 10, times it by 3. I turned it straight into a chimney sum or a column sum, and I've then been able to work it out. 3 times 5 is 15, so put the 10 up on the shelf there. 3 times 6 is 18, plus that 1 is 19. Okay, so now I need to add that back on to the 65 because I am increasing. So I'm going to take our 65, I'm going to add 19.5. So we'll add a 0.0 there. 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 plus 9 is 14. 6 plus 1 is 8. So what we have is 84.5. So if we were working that one out, we should have 84.5. Which I'm seeing people with in the answers, which is good. Hopefully that makes sense. So percentage increase and decrease. We basically work out the percentage of it and then either add it back onto the number or take it off the number. If you got 86.5, I'm not sure how. You maybe just made an adding mistake. Simple thing to do. I'm very prone to them as well. You know, I'm not perfect with this stuff. But certainly we should have got the answer, 84.5. Unless I'm wrong, which is possible, but I doubt it in this case. Okay, guys, so Today's lesson, we've gone over a little bit about percentages of, percentage increase and decrease. We've gone over a little bit about division, and we've gone over a little bit about algebra. Okay. Now we will be going through a lot more topics in the maths revision. I'll look at your answers. If you post them to the maths chat, I'll look at your answers and look at the sorts of problems that are coming up. And then on Wednesday's live stream, we can go over a few of the things that have presented us some problems. Okay. Now, the final thing I'm going to say is maths this week is kind of about mistakes. I almost want you making mistakes. I mean, not really. I want you to try and get it right as much as possible. But making mistakes is actually a positive thing here, because that means that we've got extra input to do, and that's where the teaching is going to happen. So the mistakes are the bits that I'm interested in. It is all stuff that we've learned before. You should, I mean, in theory, if we were perfect learners, we should know all of this already. However, we're not perfect learners. I'm not a perfect learner, you're not a perfect learner, and the idea is that you will have forgotten stuff, and that's absolutely fine. That's why we revise stuff, to go over it, look at where the problems are, and then consolidate our learning. So to start with, I'm going to, I'll let you just get on with the maths today, but then probably tomorrow, I'm going to put a survey out, a maths survey for you guys that I'd like you to fill in and write down the topics that you find particularly tricky. So make sure you're marking your own work and you know where you're going right, where you're going wrong. One thing I'm going to say is I've noticed some people not marking their work, and even if they are marking the work, they're not correcting their work. Remember that mistakes are where the learning happens, but only if you actually look for new learning in that process. So you need to try to figure out, where was it that I went wrong? And if you don't do that, well, then you've just made a mistake and you've not tried to learn anything from it. Miss Lindsay's class will also probably have this. It's not a test; it's just a survey, and it's just so that you guys can say, "Oh, I got all the, I got 7 of the percentage ones wrong, or I got some of the fractions ones wrong. I'd like to go over fractions, please." So yeah, everyone's going to get that survey, and it's just a chance for everyone to say what things they found tricky, so then I can go over it on Wednesday's live stream. Okay, that's the idea anyway. Right, guys, we've gone over pretty much everything that we need to go over. Try your hardest with the maths. Don't worry about mistakes, but do learn from them, please. If you make a mistake, go back and figure out where you went wrong and why you went wrong. And if you can't figure it out, that's when you ask me, and that's when I'll help you out. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, guys. Take care of yourselves today. It's a sunny day outside, so do try and get out in the sunshine on your own. Don't go socializing with other people, but yeah, take care of yourselves, and I'll yes, Anabia, you're very smart now. Excellent, well done. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.